Today's experience was sent to us by Elad, an ex-Israeli soldier. Listen carefully to understand his testimony. My name is Elad Shai. I was born and raised in Tel Aviv, in a small apartment that felt even smaller as I grew older. My father was a military officer, a man of discipline and order, and he shaped the way I saw the world. When I turned 18, I was enrolled into IDF, and everything I had been prepared for finally became real. Training was intense, but I thrived. The structure, the purpose, it gave me a sense of belonging. By the time I was 23, I was leading my own unit in counterterrorism operations. We saw ourselves as protectors, the line of defense between safety and chaos. But war is never clean. No matter how well we justified our actions, there were things we couldn't ignore. Civilians caught in crossfire. Mistakes that cost lives. We told ourselves it was necessary, that the ends justified the means. I buried any doubts, forced myself to believe that what we were doing was right. But the weight of it all had already begun pressing down on my soul. Then December 20th came. My team was on a routine patrol in a sensitive area we had been monitoring for weeks. It should have been uneventful. But something felt off. I noticed a package hidden near an abandoned vehicle, and as I signaled my team to stop, everything turned to fire and chaos. A bomb. A flash of white-hot light. And then, nothing. When I woke up, I wasn't in my physical body anymore. I was floating over the scene. I wasn't in the world as I had known it. I was suspended in something vast and endless, without shape or form, yet still completely aware. It was a space beyond life, beyond time. I could sense other presences around me, but not in the way we recognize people in the physical world. These were souls, consciousnesses filled with emotion, experience, and memory. Some of them felt familiar, others foreign. Then came the man with the scar. His face was half hidden in shadow, but I knew him instantly. He had been close, too close, when the grenade went off. I had seen him go down, seen the way his body twisted as the force threw him aside. I had barely spared a glance before moving on. He was just another enemy then, just another obstacle between me and the mission. But here now he was more than that. His eyes weren't filled with anger or blame. They held something worse, understanding. He had fought for something just as I had. Maybe it was a cause, a belief, or just survival. It didn't matter now. What mattered was that he had been a person, not just a target. I saw the life he had before that moment. A wife, a son, a worn photograph he kept tucked inside his vest. I had never seen it before, but now I did. I felt his last thought, not of the battle, not of me, but of them. Would they be okay without him? Would his son ever know the man he had been, beyond the uniform in the headlines? Then there was the girl. She couldn't have been older than 5. She stood in a doorway, barefoot, holding something in her small hands. A doll. Handmade, stitched together with love. I had barely registered her that day. A flash of movement, a figure too small to matter in the chaos. But now I was seeing her. Really seeing her. The way she had frozen in place as the world around her erupted. The way her tiny fingers had clenched around that doll, the only thing she had control over. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't even cried. She had just stared wide-eyed as the fire swallowed her home. I saw myself through her eyes, a stranger, a force she didn't understand, a storm that had torn through her world and left nothing but silence in its wake. I wanted to look away. I wanted to close my eyes and make them all disappear. But that wasn't how this worked. More faces appeared, each one tied to a moment I had convinced myself was necessary, justified, unavoidable. But here, there were no justifications. No rules of engagement. No sides. There was only what had been done and those who had lived and died because of it. A father, reaching out for his son. A mother shielding her child. A friend caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And me, standing at the center of it all, not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as a man forced to see what he had once refused to. Their eyes bore into me, not with hatred, but with truth. And the truth was heavier than any weapon I had ever carried. The air in the tunnel thickened, pressing against me like a weight I couldn't shake. The faces had spoken, their words settling deep in places I didn't know existed. But the worst part wasn't their sorrow or the truths they forced me to see, it was the understanding in their eyes. They knew I hadn't always been a monster. They knew I hadn't woken up one morning and chosen to take lives. But that didn't change the fact that I had. A boy stepped forward next, no older than 16. He wasn't angry. He wasn't afraid. He simply looked at me, his dark eyes steady, knowing he may never come back. I recognized him too late. A checkpoint. A nervous movement. A split-second decision. I had convinced myself for years that he had been reaching for something dangerous. A weapon. A detonator. A reason for what I had done. But standing here, in this place where no lie could hold, I saw what had been in his hand. A crumpled photograph. A family. His family. The last thing he had tried to show me before the bullets found him. I wanted to speak, to explain, to apologize. But what words could erase the moment his body hit the ground? What words could bring him back? He only watched me and then he was gone. A woman's voice broke through next, not sharp, not accusing, but quiet, weary. You never thought about what came after, did you? She spoke without her lips moving. I turned and there she was. The woman from the raid. The one who had shielded her child as the world collapsed around her. I had seen that moment so many times in my mind, but now, I saw what I had never dared to imagine, the child in the aftermath. She had survived, yes, but survival wasn't the same as living. I saw the nights she spent staring at the ceiling, waiting for a voice that would never return. The way she flinched at sudden sounds. The way she searched every face in the streets, hoping to find a mother she would never see again. The woman in front of me wasn't asking for pity. She was showing me what I had never stayed long enough to witness. The war didn't end when the mission was over. It carried on, in empty chairs at dinner tables, in unanswered prayers, in the hollow eyes of those left behind. More voices came, each one revealing something I had never let myself consider. A soldier on the other side of the line, one I had taken down in the name of duty. His daughter would grow up thinking he had been a hero. She would never know his last thoughts were of her. A man who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, just trying to get home. A friend who had stood beside me once, laughing, making plans for after the war, plans he never got to see through. The tunnel didn't show mercy. It didn't let me hide behind excuses or distance. It made me face what I had done. And then, the voices faded, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in finality. They had spoken. They had shown me what I needed to see. Now, it was up to me to carry it. I stood alone in the quiet, the weight of their realities pressing into my chest. This wasn't just guilt. Guilt could be ignored, pushed aside, buried beneath time and distractions. This was something else. Something heavier. A reckoning. A responsibility. A truth that would never leave me. I had been a soldier. A man who had followed orders. But now I had to live with what that truly meant. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real war I would have to fight for the rest of my life. Then came the silence. But it wasn't empty. It was filled with realities I had never allowed myself to feel. And I knew, beyond any doubt, that I could never be the same again. And then I saw the little girl from that raid. But this time, I didn't just see her. I became her. I felt the terror that had gripped her small body. The confusion. The way time seemed to slow as she stared at the armed men invading her home. I felt the weight of every innocent life caught in the crossfire. The tunnel led to a city. It was massive, stretching endlessly in every direction. The buildings pulsed, almost like they were alive, yet there was no sun, no warmth. The streets were filled with souls, soldiers, civilians, people from every war, every conflict. There were no sides here, no flags, no ranks. Just human beings, stripped of the illusions we had clung to in life. Among them were the innocents, the children, the families. They didn't accuse or cry out. They simply watched, their eyes filled with sorrow. One of them, a young boy I recognized from an operation gone wrong, approached me. In life, his eyes had been filled with terror. Now they held something deeper, a knowing sadness that pierced me to my core. I don't know how to explain it in a way that truly does it justice. But I'll try. In that place, where there was nothing but regret, darkness, and a torment deeper than pain, I felt something shift. It was sudden, like the air itself changed. And then he was there. Not like in the pictures, not like the stories I had ignored or dismissed. This was different. Overwhelming, but not in a way that crushed me, in a way that filled every part of me. Love so intense it almost hurt, but not because it was painful. Because it was pure and I wasn't. Then I saw him, Jesus. He didn't speak with words, not the way we do. But I understood everything. Instantly. He didn't need to ask me anything. He already knew. I felt it, how my choices had done more harm than I ever wanted to admit. How the things I justified, the things I excused, had left real wounds, not just in my life, but in others. I saw it, felt it, like I was standing in their pain, their disappointment, their loss. It wasn't about rules or religion. It was about love, what I had done with it, and what I had failed to do. And yet, even as the weight of it crushed me, he didn't turn away. He didn't condemn me. He showed me something else. A different way. A harder way. But the only way that mattered. A path of rebuilding, of healing, of making peace where I had once stirred up war. It wasn't a command. It wasn't forced. It was a choice, and I knew it had to be mine. I can't say I had all the answers when I came back. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't be who I was before. I had seen too much, felt too much. And the love I had been given, the mercy I didn't deserve, wasn't just for me to keep. It was meant to be given to others. When I returned to my physical body, I wasn't the same. The world felt different, heavier, yet clearer. I couldn't go back to who I was. I resigned from the army, not out of fear, but out of conviction. My family didn't understand. My comrades thought I was broken. But I knew the truth. I share my story not to condemn, but to awaken. To remind us all that we always have a choice. As believers, we must learn to see things from the lens of the Scripture, which is our guideline, and build a healthy relationship with the Holy Spirit always. God bless you.